Welcome to the lesson. This week we will be going over some of the different transparency settings you can apply to different objects, and we'll also go over some of the different effects that InDesign offers. So go ahead, in the lesson 12 folder there's a start file. Go ahead and just open that up and it'll bring you this blank document. We're going to go over to our layers panel. If you don't have it over here, just go to Window and Layers. And we're going to select the layer that's labeled background. That's where we're going to import our image into. Something else that you're going to want to make sure is turned on is go to View, Grids and Guides. Just make sure your document is set up to show any guides that are attached to the document. Right now there aren't any turned on, but we'll deal with that later. So once you have those two things set up, we're going to go to File and Place. And in the lesson 12 folder, there are some images. Go ahead and grab the one that's labeled 12 background.tiff. And just open that up. And we're going to go up to the corner here where your bleed lines meet. And just click on that. And it should fill up the entire page. Next, what we need is our swatches panel. If you don't have this, you can go to Window, Color, and Swatches. So first thing, make sure that the fill is selected. You can tell it's selected because it's on top. If it looks something like this, that means you have your stroke selected. So go ahead and select the fill, and we are going to fill it with the color Green Bright Medium. And then you're going to go up to Tint and just change that to 80%. So now what we've done is we've added a fill to the frame here, and the whites have all changed to that green bright medium at an 80% tint, but our grays are still gray. They didn't pick up any of the color. So we're going to go ahead and fix that right now. So go ahead and grab your direct selection tool, that's your white arrow, and select the image. You'll know that you've selected the image and not the frame, because the outside edge should go from blue to like an orangish brown. So click to make sure you have the image itself selected. And when you do that, you should notice that your cursor changes to a little hand. And again, we're going to change the fill on this. So right now it's going to be set to black. We're going to change that to green medium. So it's not the green bright medium, it's just the green medium. So it's a slightly darker tone. And you'll notice that when we've done that, the grays have all turned to greens now. But we're also going to go and change the tint as well. Set that to 73. And then you'll notice it gives us a more faded look. Now the reason we were able to do that is because InDesign lets you apply color properties to grayscale and bitmap images as long as they are saved as PSD, TIFF, BMP, or a JPEG format. If it's something outside of that, this method won't work. So again, it's PSD, TIFF, BMP, or JPEG. Alright, so once we've made these color changes, I'm going to go back up to my layer panel, and I'm just going to lock it by clicking in that square there. It's between the eyeball and the name. Okay, now we have the layer locked. We're going to go to Art 1, and we're going to unlock it, but we also need to go to the very left column and turn on the visibility. And you should see it adds these shapes to our project. So what I'm going to do now is, with my selection tool, I'm going to select this red circle here. It's kind of a dark reddish color. And then I'm going to go to my effects panel. Now you can either go to Window and Effects, or if you just go up into your control panel, you'll notice this button that just has F and X. You can go ahead and click on that. And I'll give you all of your effects right there. So now that I have it selected, I'm going to go to my effects panel, and I'm just going to go to Window and Effects, and I'll bring this up here. Now the effects panel controls things like your blending mode. It controls the opacity of objects. You can change your levels in here. This is where you can manage the different effects that are applied to an object. And you can also isolate the blending modes and some other aspects. So in the effects panel with this red circle still selected, I'm going to change the opacity of it, which will change the transparency. And I'm just going to set that to 70%. And then I'm going to go to this circle in the top row. The first one is the green brightest, or the one with the green brightest fill. We're going to change that opacity to 50%, so 50. And then I'm going to go down to this circle here that's filled with the green medium. And that opacity is going to be set to 60, so 60. And then I'm going to go up to the purple circle in the upper right, and we're going to change that to 70%. All right, now we're going to go back to the red circle, and we're going to change the blending mode on it. What the blending mode of something does is it affects how colors interact with each other. So like in Photoshop, a blending mode I use a lot is multiply, because what that allows me to do is I can have my normal layer with my lines on it, and then I can make a new layer, set that to multiply, and then when I go to add my colors, it will color the image, but it will let my line work show through. So if I go to the effects panel where it says normal, I'm just going to click on that drop down. You'll see all these different options. All of these do different things to colors. What we want is we are just going to select overlay. And you should notice that it changes from, rather than a red tint, we've got yellow on one half and kind of a pinkish purple on the other. Then we're going to go to the green brightest circle that's in the upper left, and we're going to change that blending mode to multiply. Okay, now we're going to go back to our layers panel, and we're going to unlock Art 2, and we're going to lock Art 1 for right now. And go ahead and turn the visibility on Art 2, so that way we can see the images associated with that. And then go ahead and select the layer, so that way everything we do from now on will be on this layer. Okay, first thing we're going to select is go over to the left here with this big thick spiral. Go ahead and select that. And then I'm going to hold Shift, and I'm going to select the second spiral as well. And then back in the effects panel, I'm going to set the blending mode to both of these objects to color dodge. And you'll see that with the way the black interacts with the color, it actually changes white. But then I'm also going to change the opacity to 30%. So that way it's not quite as bright now. All right, now I'm going to select this image that has the salad on it. And then I'm going to go into my effects panel, and I'm going to select stroke. What that will allow us to do is, as we change some of our settings, it will only apply it to the stroke and not to the image, which we want to stay preserved for right now. So in the blending mode, I'm going to change that to hard light. Okay, now that I'm happy with it, I am going to go up to layers. And I'm going to lock Art 2, and then I'm going to unlock Art 3, turn on the visibility, and I'm going to select the layer so that way I can work in it. First thing I'm going to select is I'm going to select this starburst here. And over in the effects panel, I'm going to change the opacity to 70%. And now what I'm going to do is, if you go to the center of your image, this circle, the smaller circle inside it appears. That's your content grabber. Go ahead and click that. And when you do that, a yellow box should appear around the image. That is telling us we have the image itself selected, and we want that because we're going to do what we did with the leaves, where we're going to change the color of the image. So I'm going to go back to my swatches and make sure you have fill selected. And we're going to change the color of that to red bright. And then I'm going to go back to my effects, and I'm going to change the blending mode to screen. And I'm going to leave the opacity at 100%. Okay, so I'm just going to deselect that. All right, now I'm going to go up to File, Place. Again, make sure you have nothing selected. So we're going to go to File, Place. And go ahead in the dialog box, there should be some check marks down here. Go ahead and check mark Show Import Options. And then we are going to find the Glasses AI file. And go ahead and just hit Open. And it'll bring up this new dialog box for us. So you're going to go down to where it says Options, and where it says Crop To, we're going to change that from Bounding Box Visible Layers Only to Bounding Box All Layers. So if there are some hidden layers in the document that we can't see, it will take that into account when it creates the bounding box. And then just make sure transparent background is checkmarked. And then go ahead and hit OK. You should notice it loads up our cursor like this. It has the little acrobat symbol on there. And we're going to go over to this purple circle here that has the really thin spiral on it. And I'm just going to put this image on top of that circle there. I'm just going to click once so that way it is applied full sized. And then I just want to make sure that this is placed in the center of the circle there. And those smart guides should appear to help you get it at least close to the center. And now with this image still selected, we're going to go up into our effects panel. And we're going to change the opacity to 60%. And then we're going to change the blending mode to color burn. Now we're going to go back to our layers. We're going to lock Art 3. We're going to unlock type, make it visible, and select that because we're going to work on that layer now. Okay. Now go ahead and select the text frame that has Urban Oasis Gardens in it. And over in the effects panel here, I'm going to select text in the list. So make sure objects not selected, we want text selected. And we are going to change the blending mode to overlay. And we are going to set the opacity to 70%. So that's 70. All right, then we're going to go down to the text frame down here that has breakfast, lunch, dinner, events, catering. And in the effects panel, we want to highlight fill. There, we're going to leave the blending mode as normal, but we're going to change the opacity to 70%. All right, I'm going to go ahead and deselect everything. And next, we are going to be working with feathering. Now, there are 3 different kinds of feathers. There's a basic feather, which softens or fades the edges of an object. A directional feather, which softens the edge of an object by fading the edges to transparent from directions that you specify. And then there's a gradient feather, which softens the areas of an object by fading them to transparent. So we're going to go back to our layer panel here. Go ahead and lock type and unlock Art 1. And select that because that's where we're going to be working now. All right, then we're going to go to the circle in the upper right. And we are going to go to Objects, Effects, Basic Feather. You can also get to this menu by if you go up to your control panel here. There's a little button that has FX. You can click on that. And you can see Basic Feather is in here as well. All right, so first thing I'm going to change is the feather width, which is going to be 0.375. And I'm working in inches. And then we're going to change the choke value, which is the solid part of the gradient. We're going to change that to 10%. And we're going to change the noise value to 10% as well. Noise will just kind of make it a bit more grainier so the gradient won't be as smooth. And then we're going to leave corners at diffused. And if you have preview turned on, you can see how the changes we made affected the shape. So I'm going to go ahead and just hit OK now. And then next is I'm going to select this big rectangle on the right here, the one that's filled with purple. And another way that you can get to your effects is in the effects panel. You can see that FX button is there as well. You can click on that and it has the same options again. So for this, we're going to select the gradient feather option. So when you open this up, it should be black on the left, white on the right. But go ahead and hit this button that's next to this slider here. This is just going to flip it for us, so that way the black is on the right now. Once I have this, I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. But now I want to change the direction of it. I don't want it to go left to right. I want it to go up and down. So I'm going to grab my gradient feather tool. This isn't the gradient swatch tool. It's the gradient feather tool. This one has the gradient going up and down. There are little check boxes in the background, whereas your gradient swatch tool just has the gradient on it. So select gradient feather tool. And what we're going to do is we're going to go over here. I'm going to zoom out a little bit. And I want the gradient to go from transparent down here to solid up here. So I'm going to go to the edge of my poster here. I'm going to click and then I'm going to hold shift. So this way it goes directly up. And I'm going to go about 2/3 of the way up in the rectangle. And then I'm going to let go. And you'll see that the gradient has changed from left to right to up and down now. All right, now I need to go back to my layers panel and I'm going to unlock type, because now I want to select the edible blossoms text frame. What we're going to do is we're going to add a drop shadow to it. Now you can add a drop shadow effect to something real quick by, if you go up to your control panel here, next to the effects button to the left of it, there is a square with kind of a fuzzy edge to it. If you click on that, it applies a default drop shadow to it. But if you want to edit it, you just go over to your effects and drop shadow is the first option in there. And you just click on it and it'll bring up the dialog box so we can edit some of the settings in here. So first thing we're going to change is the opacity. We're going to set that to 55%. Then we're going to go down to size and we're going to change that to 0.125 inches. And we're going to change the spread to 20%. And you can see if the preview's turned on, you can see what those changes are doing to our drop shadow. Then I'm just going to go ahead and hit OK. And then I'm going to go up to the semicircle up in the left-hand corner. I'm going to select that. And I'm going to go back to my effects. And I'm going to add a bevel and emboss to it. So under size, I'm going to change that to 0.3125 inches. I'm going to change the soften to the same amount. And then depth, I want to be set at 30%. But while I have this dialog box open, I want to go ahead and add another effect. So next to outer glow, I'm going to hit that box and check mark it. And then I'm going to actually click on the title outer glow so I can see the menu options here. So I'm going to change the mode to multiply. I'm going to change the opacity to 80%. I'm going to change the size to 0.25. And then spread is going to be 10%. And then I'm going to go over to this little square here. That's our color box. So I'm going to click on that. And rather than white, I'm going to set that to black. And then I'm just going to hit OK. And then I'm going to just hit OK again. And my effects have been applied to the object. So with this semicircle selected, I'm going to go to the effects panel. And next to object, you'll notice there is an FX symbol that's telling us that we added effects to the object. But I want to apply these exact same effects to a different object. So I'm going to click on that FX symbol and I'm going to drag it over to that little tiny circle there. And then when I let go, you'll see it applies the exact same settings to that circle as well. And that drag and drop effect that I just showed you, you don't have to do that just in the same document, you can apply that to an outside document as well. So if I had a second document open, I could change the arrange to either 2 up or 2 vertical, and with them both displayed side by side, I could click that FX and apply it to an object in that second document as well. So that's something to keep in mind. If you're working with multiple documents and you want to use the same effect or something, that's an object, or that's an option. So next in your layers, just make sure that you're still on the Art 1 layer. And we're going to select this gradient that's behind edible blossoms. Make sure you don't actually select edible blossoms. We just want the frame with the gradient in it. And then I'm going to open up the properties panel. So I'm going to go to Window and Properties. So one of the properties that are listed in this panel are effects, and you can see that gradient feather is listed there. Go ahead and click that, and it'll bring up this dialog box. And go ahead and click this color stop right here. It's the black square. Just click on that, and we're going to change the opacity on that to 80%, so 80. And then I'm going to hit OK, and that will update our gradient effect. Okay, now I'm going to go back up to layers again and go ahead and unlock Art 2. And we're going to select this small little purple circle here. And then in the effects panel, I'm going to go in here. I'm going to go to the flyout menu, which is this little button up here, and I'm going to hit Clear Effects. And you'll see it got rid of the drop shadow. If you go back to the flyout menu here, you'll notice there is a second option to clear all transparency. That would just get rid of any changes we made to like the opacity and things like that. We just wanted to get rid of the effect while preserving the opacity, so that's why we just used the clear effects. Okay, now we're happy with it. This is what it should look like. Go ahead and save it as your last name, Prac 12, and turn it on to Canvas.